The nurse thought she was calling my family to tell them I might not survive. I was lying behind a curtain in a trauma bay in Portland, half conscious, bleeding into my abdomen after a 6-car crash on I-84, when she put my mother on speaker. I remember the machines beeping. I remember a doctor shouting for another unit of blood. I remember the nurse saying, "Mrs. Langley, your daughter needs emergency surgery. You should come now." And then I heard my mother sigh. Not cry, not panic. Sigh. Like I had interrupted dinner. "We're in the middle of Thanksgiving prep," she said coldly. "Call us if she doesn't make it." The nurse froze. My father's voice came next, farther from the phone. "Ask about the body release forms. I don't want this dragging into the weekend." That was the last thing I heard before the anesthesia took me under. Not, "I love you." Not, "Hold on." Not even my name. Just body release forms. When I woke up 2 days later, my entire left side felt like it had been rebuilt with fire. 3 broken ribs, a torn spleen, internal bleeding, a concussion, stitches down my abdomen, a breathing tube bruise still raw in my throat. But the worst pain was the quiet. No flowers, no cards, no mother asleep in a chair, no father pacing the hallway. Just a plastic water cup, a blinking monitor, and the knowledge that my parents had been told their daughter might die and had chosen mashed potatoes. My name is Elise Marlowe, and for 29 years I believed I was the difficult child. That was the family word for me. Difficult. My younger sister, Brooke, was delicate. Brooke was sensitive. Brooke needed support. Brooke needed patience. Brooke needed the best tutors, the better bedroom, the reliable car, the apartment deposit, the family savings. I was difficult because I asked questions, because I remembered promises, because I did not cry prettily when people hurt me. When I was 16, my mother told me I had an ungrateful spirit because I asked why Brooke got a new laptop after breaking mine. When I was 20, my father said I was too independent to need help, after I paid my own tuition deposit with money from 3 summer jobs. When I moved from Boise to Portland to become a medical illustrator, they said I was dramatic. When my work started getting published in surgical textbooks and hospital training programs, they said, "That's nice." When Brooke quit her 3rd job in a year because her manager didn't understand her energy, my parents bought her a condo. The golden child doesn't need achievements. She only needs witnesses. I learned early that asking for help in my family was like dropping a glass in a quiet room. Everyone stared at the mess. Nobody picked up a broom. So I built a life where I did not need them. At least, that was what I told myself. But lying in that hospital bed, unable to sit up without help, I realized independence doesn't erase the child inside you who still wants her mother to come. On the 3rd morning, a hospital financial counselor came into my room carrying a folder thick enough to look like a weapon. She was kind. That made it worse. Kind people deliver bad news softly, but the news still lands. Because my insurance had lapsed during a freelance contract transition, the emergency surgery, ICU stay, imaging, medications, and trauma care had already pushed my projected bill into numbers I could not fully understand through pain medication. I stared at the total. It looked fake, like something from a bad dream. "I'm sorry," the counselor said. "We can discuss payment plans." Payment plans. People say that when they mean debt can become your new roommate. After she left, I called my father. Straight to voicemail. I called my mother. No answer. Finally, I called Brooke. She picked up on the fourth ring. "Elise, seriously? Mom said you were being dramatic." I closed my eyes. I almost died. She sighed. "Okay, but you didn't." For a second, I thought the medication had made me hear that wrong. Then she continued, "Look, don't drag Mom and Dad into this right now. They're stressed. They just helped me close on the condo, and Dad said money is tight." My hand tightened around the phone. "What condo?" Silence. Then Brooke, irritated because secrets were always my fault for discovering them. "The Pearl District one. It's not a big deal." A condo in Portland's Pearl District, the same city where I was lying in a hospital bed alone. "How much did they give you?" "That's none of your business." "How much, Brooke?" She snapped. "I don't know, Elise. Enough for the down payment and renovations. Can you not make everything about you?" I laughed. It hurt so badly, I gasped. Brooke lowered her voice. "Mom said you should have planned better. You always act so responsible, but now you suddenly need saving?" That was when something inside me went very still. Not calm. Still. There is a difference. Calm is peace. Still is what happens when pain becomes too heavy to move. "I have to go," I whispered. "Elise." I hung up. For the rest of that day, I stared at the hospital ceiling and accepted the shape of my life as my family saw it. Brooke was worth a condo. I was worth a callback if I died. That evening, around 8:17, a man walked into my hospital room. I remembered the time because the clock above the door had a cracked plastic cover, and I'd been staring at it for almost an hour. He looked about 60, tall, thin, weathered in the way people get when grief has lived in their bones too long. He wore a dark wool coat, wet at the shoulders from rain, and held a brown leather satchel against his side. At first, I thought he was a doctor. Then I saw his face. He was looking at me like he knew me. Not recognized me. Knew me. The way someone might look at a song they had not heard in 20 years. "Are you Elise?" he asked. My throat felt dry. "Yes." His eyes filled with something he immediately tried to hide. "I'm sorry," he said. I didn't know what he meant. Sorry for entering? Sorry for startling me? Sorry for something older. He stepped closer and placed a small wooden box on the tray table beside my bed. It was wrapped in a faded blue ribbon, the kind people save from old gifts because throwing them away feels wrong. "Don't open this here," he said quietly. My pulse began to climb. "Who are you?" He looked toward the hallway, then back at me. "Someone who should have found you sooner." That answer scared me more than if he had said nothing. Before I could ask another question, the financial counselor appeared in the doorway, breathless. "Elise?" The man turned. She looked from him to me, then down at her tablet. "I don't know how to explain this," she said, "but your hospital balance was just paid in full." I stared at her. "What?" "All of it. Surgery, ICU, projected recovery costs, specialist follow-ups, everything currently billed, and the deposit estimate for continuing care." My heart monitor began beeping faster. The counselor looked at the man. He insisted on no receipt. The man's jaw tightened slightly. Then he looked at me one last time. "Open the box when you're somewhere safe." "Wait," I said, trying to sit up. Pain tore through my ribs. "Please, who are you?" He hesitated at the door. Then he said, "My name is Samuel Reed. Your mother made sure you never heard it." And then he was gone. The nurse tried to stop me from panicking. The counselor tried to explain, but all I could hear was one sentence. "Your mother made sure you never heard it." I was discharged 5 days later to a small recovery apartment arranged by the hospital's patient services department. At least, that was what the paperwork said. I later learned Samuel had arranged that too. The apartment overlooked a rainy street in northwest Portland. Nothing fancy, just a clean bed, a stocked fridge, and enough quiet to make my thoughts dangerous. The wooden box sat on the kitchen table for almost 6 hours before I opened it. Inside were 3 things: a photograph, a letter, and a legal document sealed in a plastic sleeve. The photograph showed a young woman standing beside a man with dark hair and kind eyes. The woman was holding a baby wrapped in a yellow blanket. Me. I knew it before I knew anything else. The woman was not my mother, not the woman who had raised me. She had my eyes, my exact eyes. The letter was addressed in handwriting I had never seen. To my daughter, Elise. My hands began shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. I read the first line and stopped breathing. If you are reading this, then either I am gone, or the people I trusted lied to you. Her name was Camille Reed. She was my biological mother. She had been my mother's cousin. She had died when I was 2 years old from an aneurysm no one saw coming. My biological father, Daniel Marlowe, had died 6 months earlier in a construction accident. The people who raised me, Linda and Robert Langley, had adopted me after Camille's death. They told everyone it was an act of love. According to the documents in the box, it was an act of theft. Camille had left me a trust. Not millions, not movie money, but enough to pay for college, housing, medical care, and a stable start in life. Enough that I should never have worked 3 jobs through school. Enough that my first decade of adulthood should not have been built on fear. Samuel Reed was Camille's older brother, my uncle. The court documents said he had challenged the adoption after noticing inconsistencies in the estate accounting. Then came the accusation: missing funds, forged signatures, a complaint filed under his name. He had been blamed, disgraced, and pushed out of the family. By the time he cleared his name, Linda and Robert had moved away with me. New city, new records, new story. I sat at the kitchen table until the rain outside turned into morning. Then I read everything again. And again. By sunrise, grief had become something sharper. I called Samuel from the number he had left inside the box. He answered on the first ring. "I was wondering how long it would take," he said. "Did they steal my trust?" A long silence. Then, "Yes." The word was soft, but it broke something open. "How much?" "Elise." "How much?" He exhaled. "Originally, about 480,000. With growth, if properly managed, it would have been more." I closed my eyes. My sister's condo, her renovations, her cars, her unpaid credit cards quietly settled. Her life, bought with mine. "Why now?" I asked. "I never stopped looking," Samuel said. "But they changed your surname, moved twice, kept you away from anyone connected to Camille. I found you last year through one of your published illustrations." I looked toward my desk, where medical anatomy sketches sat unfinished. "My work?" "Your mother was an artist," he said quietly. "You draw hands the way she did." That was when I cried. Not because of the money, because someone had recognized me through something real, not through my usefulness, not through my failures, through inheritance no one had managed to steal. A week later, I sat in a law office downtown with Samuel beside me and an estate attorney named Marisol Vega across the table. She had silver hair, red glasses, and the calm brutality of someone who enjoyed destroying liars with paperwork. She reviewed everything for 45 minutes without speaking. Then she looked up. "They were sloppy." Samuel's jaw tightened. "I told you." Marisol tapped the adoption records. "Sloppy people are often arrogant people. They assumed no one would ever look." I asked the question I had been afraid to ask. "Can we prove it?" Marisol smiled slightly. "We can do better than prove it. We can make them explain it under oath." That afternoon, I called my mother. She answered on the second ring. "Well," she said coldly, "I hope you're done punishing everyone with your silence." I almost laughed. "Hello to you too." "You scared your sister. She said you sounded unstable." "I was recovering from internal bleeding. Don't be dramatic." There it was. The family anthem. Don't be dramatic. Translation, don't make us feel guilty. I looked at Samuel, sitting across from me in the attorney's conference room. He nodded once. "Mom," I said, using the word one last time as a test. "Do you know someone named Samuel Reed?" Silence. Complete, beautiful, terrified silence. Then her voice came back thin. "Where did you hear that name?" "From Samuel." I heard something drop on her end. Maybe a glass, maybe the mask. "Listen to me," she said quickly. "Whatever he told you, he is dangerous." "No," I said. "He's not." "You don't understand what happened back then." "I understand you stole my trust." Her breathing changed. Just slightly. That was enough. I understand Camille Reed was my mother. Elise, and I understand you left me to die in a hospital while spending my inheritance on Brooke's condo. Her voice sharpened instantly. That money was used to raise you. I looked around the conference room, at the attorney, at Samuel, at the evidence laid neatly in folders. No, I said. That money was used to replace loving me. The line went quiet. Then my father picked up from another phone. You listen to me, he said. You ungrateful little. Marisol held out her hand. I put the call on speaker. My father continued. After everything we sacrificed for you, you come after us because some bitter old man fills your head with lies? Marisol leaned toward the phone. Mr. Langley, this is Marisol Vega, estate counsel for Elise Marlowe. Please continue. This call is being documented. Silence. I had never heard my father go silent that fast. Marisol smiled. Excellent. We'll be in touch. She ended the call. For the first time in my life, someone else hung up on them for me. The lawsuit did not resolve overnight. Real life is not that clean. My parents fought. They denied everything. They claimed records were misunderstood. They said Camille had wanted them to use the money as they saw fit. They said Samuel was unstable. They said I was confused from trauma medication. That one made Marisol laugh for almost 10 seconds. Then discovery began. Bank statements, old emails, property records, tuition payments, wire transfers. The trust had been drained slowly over years, not in one dramatic theft. Worse. Groceries, vacations, Brooke's private school, Brooke's car, Brooke's condo deposit, my father's business debts, my mother's cosmetic dental work. Tiny betrayals, repeated until they became a life. 6 months after the accident, we sat in mediation. My parents looked different there. No church smiles, no family authority. Just two people in expensive clothes, facing documents they could no longer shame into silence. Brooke came too. She wore a cream coat and looked annoyed until Marisol displayed the wire transfer for her condo down payment. Then she went pale. I didn't know, she whispered. I believed her. That surprised me. Brooke had been spoiled, selfish, protected, but not smart enough to be part of the original lie. My mother reached for her hand. Brooke pulled away. That was the first crack. My father tried to speak. The mediator stopped him. Marisol laid out the numbers. The settlement required liquidation of several assets, including Brooke's condo, repayment of the remaining trust value, legal fees, and a public correction of the estate record. My mother cried then. Not when I was in surgery. Not when I woke up alone. When the condo was listed for sale. That told me everything I still needed to know. Afterward, Brooke found me outside the courthouse. Rain fell lightly over the steps. Portland rain. Soft enough to look harmless until you realize you're soaked. She stood beside me without her usual confidence. I thought they loved me more because I was easier to love, she said. I looked at her. No. They loved what you allowed them to pretend. She wiped her face. Do you hate me? I thought about lying. then decided against it. Sometimes. She nodded. Fair. But not today. That made her cry harder. We are not close now. Not exactly. But she got a job. A real one. She moved into a small apartment across the river. She started therapy. Sometimes she texts me pictures of terrible dinners she tries to cook herself. Sometimes I answer, sometimes I don't. Healing is not a straight road. It's more like learning which bridges are safe to cross again. As for Linda and Robert, I stopped calling them my parents. They eventually settled, not because they were sorry, because the evidence was worse than the embarrassment. They lost the house. My father's business collapsed under liens. My mother's friends stopped inviting her to charity lunches after the court record became public. People call that karma. Maybe it is. But karma doesn't feel as sweet when you realize it cost you your childhood. Samuel and I built something slower. He showed me photographs of Camille, told me she sang off-key in the car, told me Daniel, my father, used to fix broken furniture even when nobody asked, told me I had my mother's stubbornness and my father's quiet hands. For my 30th birthday, he gave me Camille's old sketchbook. The first page was a drawing of a newborn baby's hand curled around a finger. Under it, she had written, Elise, my proof that love can survive me. I cried for an hour. Then I framed it. With the recovered money, I paid my medical follow-ups, cleared my debts, and bought a small studio overlooking the Willamette River. Not brand new, not glamorous. Mine. I also started a fund for trauma patients discharged without family support. The first grant went to a 19-year-old girl whose parents lived 3 states away and couldn't afford a hotel. The second went to a man recovering from surgery who had been sleeping in his car between appointments. I named it the Camille Reed Patient Bridge Fund. Not the Elise Fund. Not revenge. Memory. 1 year after the accident, I returned to the hospital. Not as a patient, as a donor. The same nurse who had made that emergency call recognized me in the lobby. Her eyes filled immediately. I never forgot you, she said. I smiled. I didn't either. She looked embarrassed. I'm sorry you heard what they said. I'm not, I told her. And I meant it, because if I had not heard the truth that night, I might have kept chasing a family that had never existed. Sometimes the cruelest sentence of your life becomes the door out of a lie. My mother once told a doctor to call her back if I died. Instead, I lived. I found the family they buried. I recovered the legacy they stole. And I learned that blood does not make people loyal. Love does. Truth does. The stranger in the black coat was not really a stranger. He was the first person in my life who came back for me when I had nothing to offer. That is family. Not the people who show up for your inheritance. The people who show up when everyone else has already decided you are not worth saving.